Hey guys, and welcome back to another Melorium devlog. I know it's been a little while. I took a small break, which kept getting longer and longer, and yeah, here we are. You've all been really supportive with me taking a break, and I really do appreciate that, so thank you so much. It's nice to see so many of you wanting new content from me, and trying to motivate me on the Discord, so thanks again for that, it helped me out a lot. I've been really busy during my break with Christmas coming up, and getting a full-time job. It's most likely only a temporary job, which sucks, but yeah. I have still been working on Melorium here and there, but obviously progress has slowed down quite a bit. So this video will be sort of like a catch-up devlog, and I'll hopefully be able to post more frequently again soon. Before we get into it, I want to address some feedback from my previous video. I got a couple of comments saying they didn't like the idea of the tank and fish limitations within my game, which is completely understandable. The player should have full control over their tanks. I'll be working on improving the limitations over the next week or so, and will remove the hard limit on fish and critters entirely. Instead, I will add soft limits to both. Rather than hard limitations, I will add consequences for overcrowding the tanks, such as the rate of sickness will increase, as well as the fish becoming hungrier slightly faster than normal. It'll take quite a bit of playtesting to get perfect, but I think this will make the player think more about the health of their fish, as well as strategize on how to play the game within their tanks a bit more in terms of population. During my break, I didn't really record a lot of footage, so the game might look quite different from before, and I might end up skipping over some new features or changes within the game, so I apologise for that in advance. The first obvious change is the UI design, especially the colours. I did like the old colour palette, but I think it was a bit too bright and made it stand out more than the game itself, which wasn't ideal. The new palette does stand out, but not so much that it distracts the player from their fish or their gameplay. Let me know what you guys think about the colour change. The UI is still far from final, but I do like it so far. I also played around with how the UI works. The main thing I was considering changing was the shop. I made a couple variants, but for now I converted it back to how it was originally, but with the new palette. I may change this in future, as well as other parts of the UI, but for the purpose of this demo, the shop works fine. The next thing I worked on was the Encyclopedia. I wanted to create a similar feature to Animal Crossing's Crittopedia system, which tells you all the information about the fish you previously caught and their information, like when to catch them and so on. The encyclopedia within my game will give you information on the fish you've discovered so far, whether this be unlocking new species using research points or discovering new subspecies through breeding. Subspecies will display additional information, such as how you can breed them again, so that once that player has bred that unique species once, they know how to do it again, and it'll just be down to consistent breeding rather than pure luck. Right now the encyclopedia looks pretty boring and basic, as it doesn't have any images or data inputted into it. The numbers represent the ID of each fish's species, as well as the subspecies. Each fish will have 5 variants including the original, which you will unlock through breeding subspecies. Eventually they will be represented by a silhouette, which will show you the real image once discovered, and the same with the subspecies. But right now it is shown as the ID or a question mark if undiscovered. Each fish's page will show some real-life information and statistics or facts about the fish themselves. I always thought this was a cool feature in the games that I've played in the past, so including some educational information for the player might be pretty cool. On top of this, it will show some statistics, like what in-game day you discovered each fish. This can be used to track things like how fast the player can complete the game in terms of breeding. Again, this is sort of similar to Animal Crossing's stamp system on the Nook phone. One thing I noticed I've been doing a lot in the past is being too much of a perfectionist, which is very bad for the progress of the game, as well as the frequency of uploads on my channel. I always think to myself, is this good enough to show? And I'm very hesitant to post out a new video, in case you guys don't like it. Instead of thinking like that, I'm going to try and force myself to push out more content, in order to gather more feedback from you all. So instead of having this perfect demo that everyone's going to enjoy, I'll be releasing the demo a lot sooner, and it'll be the shell of the game with all the basic mechanics, to see how you all find it, and see what I can improve on within the game early on. There'll most likely be a lot of bugs to report too, so that'll be interesting to see. By using this approach, it means I can gather lots of feedback faster, make the changes required, and then repost another demo build to improve the game overall. Right now I've got a list of things I want to finish before I do post the demo out, which is a lot smaller than what I did have planned previously. Another thing I've been working on recently is tank customization, which I briefly spoke about in the last devlog. I've now got some very basic UI whenever you create your first story mode or creative mode tank, which allows you to select between 2 sand variants. They're both pretty much the same, just slightly different shaped terrain for the base of your tank. In the future I'll add a lot more options for the base of the tanks, lighting, colour of the tank's stand, and so on. But for now I just settled with having the basics of this mechanic working. The tank data will save and load similar to the fish and the decoration data, meaning it will load up correctly each time. And the last thing I've been working on is a couple of new fish, a triggerfish and a tang. I think they both turned out quite nicely. They took a lot of time to model and weight paint. I still need to rig the triggerfish and texture both of them and animate them within Unity before I can add them into the game. One thing that was pointed out to me recently by a friend was that my models are very inconsistent, which I completely agree with. I'm still a beginner at modelling and 3D as a whole, so this was great feedback to get, especially this early into development. What I mean by inconsistent is that the poly count between each fish are incredibly different. For example, looking at the clownfish, damselfish and angelfish. The clown and damsel are pretty consistent. They're very low poly and fit together quite nicely in my opinion. But the angelfish has a lot more polys, and it's pretty obvious looking at it that it's a lot more detailed. The goby is another example of a fish that has a lot more polys than the rest, and it stands out a lot when you compare them. So after this demo is released, I'm going to spend a lot of time deciding on whether I prefer the lower poly look or the higher poly look, and converting the odd ones out. This may take some time to become consistent in, and something else I'll need to consider is how I colour each fish's pattern. Right now I colour per face, which looks nice in my opinion, but that also means more complex patterns on subspecies will require more polys, which is the main reason the angelfish itself has so many polys. This obviously won't be possible if I go with the lower poly style, so I'll need to learn how to texture my models without using per face, while still maintaining my style. Thanks so much for watching this video this far through, I really do appreciate it. I'll try my best to post more frequently, but no promises as I'm working a lot at the moment. I'll try and post out a new 10 Undiscovered soon, so feel free to join my Discord and suggest a channel to feature, whether it's yours or somebody else's. And thank you so much for my patrons over on Patreon for supporting me in my channel, especially with me taking a long break. I'm honestly very surprised I didn't lose all of them, so I'm incredibly grateful. So a massive thank you to Tom and SabKitty for sticking around. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, and please leave any suggestions or feedback in the comments below if you have any. I would love to hear them all. The links to my socials and my Discord join link are in the description, so feel free to come hang out and share your projects and devlogs in there. Thank you so much for watching.